these on.
Official, guys.
It's a ball and chain.
You gotta put them on. I mean, there's like, it goes on your finger.
Oh, where?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah? You want to talk loud enough? Okay. So it turned out to be a beautiful evening for a wedding, huh, guys? Huh? So it's like a high of 75, and the low is actually that my sister put enough trust in me to give this speech. Let's be honest. But you probably just knew I was the funniest person in this room, but except for Dad. Dad's funnier, but only if the audience is a 5-year-old or an old person with dementia who won't remember the joke from 5 minutes ago. But actually, like now that I think of it, you've got 2 of those right next to you, so that could actually work out really well. Let's be honest. Okay. So now you're probably like really concerned, like sitting there worried, thinking I'm gonna start talking about farts or like bring up some super embarrassing stories, which I do plan to do. But anyways, for those of you that don't know, Jess and I came from the same parents. I got her hand-me-down womb, if you will. So anyways, this is the girl I totally tortured as a child by like chasing with knives and throwing high heels at. But Mom and Dad never believed that because Jess was just the more outspoken one of the 2 of us, so I just never got caught. But and she was dumb enough to leave welts. But if any of you don't understand how somebody could love their sister dearly and want to wring their neck at the same time, you're probably an only child. Who would have thought that this girl would have ended up being one of my biggest role models and best friends? But you know, this is actually pretty exciting for me because as the younger sister of Miss Chatty Cathy, it's pretty rare I can never get a word in with her around. And if you know me, you'll know I've always felt a little bit of an underdog in this sisterhood. But honestly, I really haven't minded being a little overshadowed by my sister. Because, oh, sorry, lost my place. Because by living in her shadows, I've pushed myself to the max. I've grown in my faith. I've lived vicariously through her ridiculous world travels. I've been inspired to chase my dreams and not be afraid to step out of my comfort zone. Virginia. I lived my life a little more responsibly. Well, with the exception of those first couple years of undergrad. Sorry, Mom and Dad. But most importantly, through her, I've learned to pour my heart and soul into everything I do. Jess, I really don't think you'll truly ever realize the extent of how much I look up to you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Before I forget, does she not look stunning tonight? Yeah. Matt, brother, friend. You really did get the whole package in her.
I know.
She's got more passion than absolutely anyone I know. She's caring, gorgeous, smart as heck, loves the Lord, is supportive, funny. Jess, sorry, I can't read your writing. What's the rest of this say? So, you know, I do also need to address the fact that this really has been a long and difficult road for Jess since her first true heartbreak, which actually occurred about the age of 6 when she had to face the reality that it wasn't legal or socially acceptable to marry our cousin. Jess was finally able to move on, but Jordy's still single 20 years later. Ladies, after that. So anyways, then poor Jess was also devastated when our dad told us that we couldn't date until we were married. But, you know, joke's on Dad, because Jess and Matt actually kind of took that advice to heart. Dad only wishes Jess would be as obedient regarding politics and which state of the country to colonize with little Corey children. But, so Jess, I can still remember the first time you called to tell me about Matt, which was actually before you'd even met him in person. I don't know if you remember that. But I do, because you were unbelievably concerned about his facial hair.
Lack of it?
And you, Jess, don't worry, you can only shave it in his sleep. You never listen to me, ever. Gosh. But now I bet you're just thankful that he hasn't taken it quite as far as Brother Benny Boo, aren't you? But in all seriousness, I also remember the first time you called me after finally meeting him. You were at his house and he was on the phone with his mom. And I can distinctly remember the joy in your voice as you described his laugh to me. And it was in that moment that I knew my sister was falling in love. So then I met Matt for the first time. And he brought me a t-shirt and a six-pack.
Let's stop this now.
Well, we gotta keep going, this is the best part. So, even though it wasn't a six-pack of PBR, it was in that moment that I knew I approved of my sister falling in love. So, of course, it was then in true Christina style that I called up my mom and told her Jess was nuts for being into this guy because he was awkward and weird. So weird. Mom immediately started crying, not even kidding. She felt so bad for Jess. So then I had to start laughing and tell her I was kidding. But, in all seriousness, I was dead serious. So I also knew we then had to welcome Matt into the family the Fishbach way, which is why I may or may not have had something to do with my dad grabbing his butt upon meeting him. Matt was super traumatized and is actually still in therapy from said encounter, but luckily Jess let him take his straitjacket off for the wedding. So anyways, Matt, just a couple pieces of advice. 1, never, and I repeat never, take the passenger side seat in the back of the car. That's my sister's seat, and every car ever manufactured, her name is written right on it. And if you take her seat, claws will come out, because I've got scars to prove that. 2, learn to like cooking and cleaning, because Jess probably never will. And we definitely don't want your wife to be dirty or hungry, right? No.
Thank God for cheap Chinese.
Woo! 3, buy the in-laws lots of awesome stuff. 4, whenever you're wrong, admit it. Whenever you're right, just be quiet. 5, don't forget that we have a strict no-return policy. You buy her, you keep her. And 6, don't ever forget how many firearms I own, and I ain't afraid to use them. And watch it. Watch it. Fight. Yeah. And so to close, on behalf of my sister and brother, I really do want to sincerely thank you all for coming. It's amazing how far people will travel for free food these days.